Welcome to everybody. We have here today the Executive Secretary of IGAD, Mr. Mahboub Maalim, and I want to pass the floor now to the Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Manuel Gómez Acebo, to explain the figure we have here, who is going to talk about current challenges in the Horn of Africa. So, Manolo.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you all for coming, and thank you especially to the Executive Secretary of IGAD, Mr. Mahboub Maalim, who is joining us this morning in Madrid, in Casa Árabe. Actually, he was just telling me a minute ago that this is his first occasion in Madrid and also in Spain, so I hope this will be only the first of more visits to come, because I think that it is very important to have this occasion to know and realize the importance of the challenges now currently in place in the Horn of Africa, and the very important role, very positive role that this regional integration organizations is carrying out. Mr. Mahboub Maalim was born in Kenya in 1958, and he's an engineer, civil engineer, and he has been linked to various projects and various programs concerning water, especially water management, and he has been named Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the IGAD, in 2008. And since then, and even though the basic origin of IGAD was development, actually the name Intergovernmental Authority on Development has this reference to it. It was actually founded on the basis of a previous organization that had was born out of the need for cooperation, regional cooperation, and joining up of efforts in reaction to the natural disasters that happened in the Horn of Africa some time ago. But since then, the need for a heavy agenda and a heavy engagement in the issue of peace and security was evident because of the various conflicts and cross-border challenges that have been coming up in the region. IGAD, if correct me, Mr. Maalim, is made up by 8 states, even though presently Eritrea is not suspended as a member. So we have Ethiopia, we have Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, Djibouti. Eritrea, of course, is suspended, and then South Sudan as a new member, since it was born as a state and then admitted subsequently in 2011. You might mention briefly the structure and the purpose of IGAD, but I would like to underline again that the role of IGAD has become even more important, not only in this agenda of cooperation, but in response to the different conflicts. In this sense, the early warning conflict and response mechanism that IGAD has put into place is a very important tool, as well as the IGAD capacity building program against terrorism, which is another challenge. There is also a lot to do with the development challenges such as climate change, and also a very important objective and cross-thematic objective, which is the role of women in peace and security, which is linked to one of the main issues in the agenda of the Security Council for these years, which is the renovation of the resolution on peace, women, peace and security. This will be coming up probably in the month of October in the Security Council. And Spain will have a role there, because on the month of October, Spain will be chairing the Security Council in New York. But with these few words, and again thanking you for your participation in these various activities today, starting now with this conversation in Casa Árabe. I will give you the floor, Mr. Maalim, but not without thanking Eduardo López Busquets, Director of Casa Árabe, for his generosity in hosting this meeting now. As you know, Casa Árabe, as other similar institutions in Spain, who are linked to the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also to regional and local governments, is a tool of public diplomacy, and it's really a very useful and very well appreciated instrument in connecting visitors, connecting the visitors, be they political, be they institutional, cultural, academia, intellectuals from different regions of the world to Spanish society and vice versa. So welcome again, and thank you very much. That's
Thank you very much, Director General, Mr. Manuel. May I begin by paying tribute and thanking the Director General for the Institute, His Excellency Ambassador Lopez, for allowing us to be here, for inviting us, and for giving us the opportunity to not only use this premise, but also to talk to yourselves. I feel that the discussion that we're going to have is not just one-sided. I'm sure you all have had a lot of readings you have done, and you're already pretty much aware of some of the issues that I'm going to mention. But in the discussions, I will also pick something from yourselves. So in a way, I'm here also to pick your brains so that I know what are the points of view of different intellectuals in different parts of the world, and how I can use that to improve on what we're doing. But also to thank Director General Manuel for his time. I know he's a very busy person. To have a Director General here with us, taking his time, is also something that we cannot take for granted. May I introduce my colleague, Mr. Alberto Vega. Mr. Alberto Vega is an advisor, a senior advisor to me. He's based with us in our headquarters in Djibouti. So he actually sits with us in our headquarters in Djibouti. He works for the GIZ, the German government, but he's Spanish. So when this mission came up, I was very happy to have a Spanish person with me, and I thought, just to prove to the Spanish people that we are offering job opportunities for some of your citizens, that he can be here. And also to get the opportunity to eavesdrop. If somebody decides to say something in Spanish, then I warn you now, because he's going to pick it up. But it's very good to have Alberto with us. I was supposed to have two other colleagues, two other ambassadors, former ambassadors. One is Ambassador Tewolde Gebremeskel, who is Ethiopian, and who served as Ethiopian ambassador in the Nordics for a long time, but who is now our Director of Peace and Security. And Ambassador Mohamed Abdi Affey, who was Kenyan ambassador to Somalia. He was Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he's IGAD special envoy for Somalia. So that, we have the two experts here who will really probably get into the in-depth of discussion. Unfortunately, they got stuck in Istanbul yesterday. When they came to Istanbul, something happened with their visa, and one had come from Nairobi, the other one had come from Addis Ababa, and they met there, and they all had the same problem. So the Turkish airline would not accept to fly them here. So it was very unfortunate that, I don't know whether they have managed to go back or whether they're still looking for tickets, but it was a very unfortunate incident. I'm laughing a little bit about it because I was really surprised. I didn't think, that's the last thing I expected to happen. So thank you so much. It's good we're here this morning. But just to tell you, Your Excellencies, that those of us who are in the other parts of the world, we all, at one point in our lives, particularly people my age, have been forced to know about Spain. So even though this is my first time in Spain, I know about Spain because Spanish people are historically giants. They did a lot of voyages across the world. They made discoveries. They made ships. They have big names in their culture and there was an empire, big empire, for a very long time. And you have not lost. I must tell you that I don't think you have lost that, because your city is very beautiful, and I think your economy is good and your infrastructure is good. So congratulations. But also to tell you that I know that now you are a member of the Security Council this time, and therefore you have a very important contribution to make. And I would like also to be able to use that opportunity for the discussions we're going to have today to see whether there are things we can pick up together that then we could probably get your help in trying to further some of the political issues that we would like to take through the UN Security Council. But also to note that your ambassador in Addis Ababa, who is your ambassador in Ethiopia, Djibouti, UNECA, and AU, is a very active person, Ambassador Manuel, very, very active person, very nice man, and very, very hard-working. Really, it is through his effort that we got a working interaction. And through him, that we saw the need to probably take a detour from other work in other parts of Europe so that we could have this discussion. And to thank all of you for everything you've done, and to note the relationship that IGAD has with this institute, this Al-Bayt al-Arabi, Casa Árabe, because of our League of Arab States connections. We have countries like Somalia, Sudan, Djibouti, who are members of League of Arab States, who are also members of IGAD, who I know work with the Director General in this institute. So there's that working relationship. So the world is very small. You may think you're not related to somebody, only to discover that you're third cousins or something. So we are third cousins because of that interaction. Now coming back to IGAD, and the Director General Manuel has already really started the discussion. This institution was started in 1986. It used to be called IGAD with 2 Ds. It was set up as a result of that very serious weather-related emergency that was domiciled in the Horn of Africa in 1980 to 84. And when we saw the first worst pictures in the television sets in 1984, that was the Ethiopians. Then the United Nations General Assembly made a resolution that we need to have an agency that then can coordinate some of these weather-related emergencies in the Horn of Africa. And IGAD was born at that time with drought and desertification as a focus. And then as fate would have it, there has been a lot of transformations. And in the early 90s, there was need to bring up the political agenda. Therefore, a new directorate of peace and division, peace and security, was instituted in the organization. And one of the Ds was dropped, so it became an authority on development, which pretty much encompassed the issues of weather-related emergencies and environmental conditions and drought issues too. So we have an IGAD with 1 D since then. And peace and security is still a big issue in our region. And I think at that time, the heads of states, in their wisdom, saw the necessity to bring up that directorate at that time. It was at a time when there were changes of leadership in Ethiopia, when the EPDRF, the current ruling party, came into power as a result of a failed insurgency. That's a time when Eritrea, which was part of Ethiopia, seceded with the help of the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front at the time that they worked together. That's a time, immediately 2 or so years later, when the Ethiopia-Eritrea conflict began. That's a time when Somalia broke down as a country, and when the former President Siad Barre ran away, and then Somalia went into turmoil. That's a time when there was heightened fight between Sudan and South Sudan for their liberation. That's a time when there has been a lot of clamor for multi-party democracy in Kenya, moving from transitionally from one-party democracy to plural democracy, which was a transitional plural democracy at the time. So there were a lot of issues that were, Uganda was fairly new because President Museveni had just come into power as a result of the liberation movement that he led. And before the time when Amin left and before Museveni took over, there have been like 8 or 9 presidents. Every 1 month or so, there has been much more presidents, I think, in Uganda in those 2-3 years, the difference between Idi Amin and 86 than any other country, any other history, I think. In fact, the president who, in 1986, 14th of January, who signed IGAD as an organization in Djibouti, is called Tito Okello. And after he signed on IGAD, he was overthrown by Museveni while still in Djibouti. So because of this serious movement of of peace and security issues, then that directorate has become very important, and that's why it was introduced. And since then, that has been one of our major preoccupation. And we are trying to do the peace and security issues in IGAD along 4 fronts. One, we are trying to do conflict prevention, resolution, and management, what we call the CPMR aspect, which includes the early warning systems and includes all issues that require synthesis and sharing of intelligence information and understanding what's all about. And this we do it through a specialized office called C1, CEWERN, Conflict Early Warning and Early Response Mechanism. So what we do here is, try to prevent conflict by trying to collect data, by trying to make sure that this data collected transcends from community-based approach right to the top level of policymakers, that information is given to policymakers on time, very, very quickly, and that this information is premised on policy-making decision processes, is premised on getting collaboration between member states. For example, Ethiopia, Kenya has what they call a Peace and Security Commission. Somalia and Kenya have similar arrangements. Kenya and Uganda have similar arrangements. Then the IGAD-wide has similar arrangements, so that they could be that peace and security issues is handled bilaterally between 2 countries, and then overally, regionally, when it gets out of the 2 countries, for example. So that conflict early warning and response mechanism to contribute to conflict prevention, resolution, and management is so important. Secondly, we also address issues of peace and security from the point of view of mediation. And here you have seen where IGAD has always been involved in serious mediation processes. We were in Somalia from after 14 attempts by different stakeholders after the country broke. Then IGAD came in. So in 2003, 2004, then IGAD took over the process and has been in Somalia since then on mediating Somali issues, and is still in there. And we'll get into Somali issues as when we open the discussion for plenary for discussion. The South Sudan mediation process, we have been in it. We have senior envoys appointed by the head of states who have been trying to mediate the South Sudan process for a long time, and we will talk about it when we get there. So mediation is also a key component of the peace and security agenda in our region. And then thirdly, we have what we call, and the director mentioned, something about terrorism, something about the IGAD security sector program, which focuses on what we call emerging crimes. Here we're talking about terrorism, we're talking about piracy, we're talking about cyber crimes, we're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about money laundering. So all these new emerging crimes that has become synonymous with the world today, as opposed to a couple of years ago, are things that we think form the bedrock of consideration as we address issues of peace and security. And lastly, the 4th pillar of peace and security agenda that we work on is capacity building. And here this is much more easily said than done, or people find the capacity building as just any other terminology that we just want to use. But here we are talking about serious capacity building, because the secretariat that is supposed to facilitate all this that I had requires experts and people who can synthesize information, can understand, can research, can make serious opinionated contribution on serious peace and security issues that affect the region economically, infrastructurally, politically, can result war, whatever it is. And also capacity also in the member states. So all officials who have security-related functions, and here you don't have to be a police officer, or you don't have to be a military officer, you don't have to be a uniformed officer only, really, to be involved in peace and security issues. If you are an immigration officer, if you are a customs officer, if you are an officer who does clearance, if you are a national security intelligence officer, for example, there are many, many officers who, if you are a revenue collection officer, we all have various security. Your work has security-related implication, and therefore capacity to think through security issues across the divide is so important for us. So really, these are the key areas of challenges in peace and security that we grapple with on every day. Now, over and above the peace and security issues, we also, as a challenge, grappling with the issue that the director mentioned very, very well, is the issue of food security. And here, food security is a big, big thing. And maybe being blessed with so much food and so much technology, an ordinary Spanish person, if I was talking to an ordinary person, and we're all ordinary people, probably will not understand exactly why is it that at this time and age, people are talking about food insecurity. Food insecurity in the Horn of Africa is so severe that, according to World Food Program statistics, the IGAD region has 240 million people. The world now has about 6.5 or 7 billion people. And that puts us to like about 3% of the global population. But we are beneficiaries to like about 40% of all the global food aid. So all the food aid that's delivered by World Food Program across the world, from south to east, northwest, 40% goes to 3% of the population. These are serious food insecurity issues. And this is only what we call the general food distribution. There's another type of food distribution they call the school feeding program that is aimed internationally, and I'm sure you all contribute to this, that's supposed to keep children in school. And to do that, then you have to have something to entice the children to want to stay in school. So it was decided that lunch will be provided to any school-going child who goes to school and who remains in school. So the lunch is provided. So it's school feeding program. And we are beneficiary to 35% of all the school feeding programs in the world. So food security is something very, very serious to us. And the reasons why we are such food insecure are so many reasons, conflict and whatever, you know, to mention it. So how do we address it as this challenge? And we do it along two tiers. One is we try to look at the, we look at the reality of the, geophysical locality of our region, and we see that our region, over 70-75%, is arid and semi-arid, and is based for rangeland development, and is based for livestock rearing. And a lot of our people are livestock people. And I am a livestock person. I'm Kenyan, but of Somali origin, and I come from the northern part of Kenya, bordering the southern part of Somalia. So in fact, as a growing up child, herding goats across the border, I didn't even know there was a border. I heard there was a border very recently. We don't know where the border is. In fact, sometimes the Kenyan military come or Somali military come and people get arrested because you're in another country, and we wonder why they're arrested, because we don't know. Because these borders have not been demarcated, and people are the same people, and people just interact, and they intermarry, and they have relationships, and they move from place to place to acquisition, grazing, vegetation or water, because of changes in the eco-climatical system. But then you end up in another country, for example. So because of that, then we have challenges in dealing with the arid and semi-arid development and pastoral livelihood development, because that development is unique, because that economy is climatic based, and that is the group that really get affected seriously whenever there are climatic issues that touch the environment. Whenever there is a dry spell, when the ecological conditions change, when the vegetation cover is depleted, when browse and grass vegetation is not there, when water gets depleted, when animal prices go down, when milk availability is low, when animals become very skinny, when there's not much meat in the home, when you can't sell the animal because it is too emaciated, when the rural economy collapses. So then we have a whole issue of serious area of food insecurity as far as the arid and semi-arid groups are concerned that we deal with. On the other hand, we have pockets of highland and good high potential areas that do crop agriculture. So here we do crop agriculture, and here we stay on the tenets of the CADEP, the Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program for Africa. That's really the main blueprint for agricultural productivity and fisheries. So there we also do it. So we have a directorate of arid and semi-arid lands and pastoral, and we have a directorate of agriculture and fisheries that deal with this. But along with this, we also have a big agenda on resilience development. Resilience basically, and you know the definition better than me, is being able to do something that then improves the pastoral's possibility to cope with the next cycle of weather-related emergency better. So if it means providing water, if it means giving veterinary medication for his animals, if it means providing seedlings for the crop agriculture, it means something is done, an intervention is done that then prepares you better for the next cycle of drought or next cycle of drought emergency, that then makes you better and better until it becomes as normal as winter in Europe, for example. I have friends who live in Europe, and Sometimes they say the temperature is minus 20, and people have 20 kilograms, so it's 12 to 18 kilograms of clothes on, and you look at his wardrobe, and he has wardrobes that you never touch part of the year because it's not suited for the climate. Another is for this climate, another is this climate. I was in Brussels last week, and I had to buy a pullover inside, and I have to buy not a very heavy coat. I was told I didn't need the big coat. I needed a lighter coat. So it costed me 260 euros, which I couldn't afford at the time. But I needed it because the wind was so strong, it was a bit cool, it was raining. So now I have it in my bag, and I have no use for it. Maybe I have no use for it. And I have so many such clothes in my house now because as I travel, I pack this and then buy this and issue like those. And I didn't have it because when I went to Europe this time, I thought this is the good season, so I didn't need it, yeah. But you can imagine. But for us, those things don't. In fact, what's going to happen is another friend who's going to go to Europe sometime will ask me, do you have a coat? And I say, yes, and I'll give you the coat. And then he'll give it to another person. So I don't have, the next time I'm there, I buy another one. So you can imagine how, but people in Europe, they have all these clothes there, and there's different times, so you actually know what to pick. So we want our resilience of our people to be as cyclic and as usual as winter is in Europe, so that their life doesn't change. But the third issue, again, that we grapple with every time as a challenge is economic and social issues in the Horn of Africa. And here, like all other organizations, we're talking about trade, how do we trade better? And in IGAD, our trade regime is enshrined in a document we call MIP, the Minimum Integration Plan. We are not as fancy as East African Community is, for example, or COMESA is, about big trade issues, about the axle loads and about the lorries and about the trade barriers and non-trade barriers. Why? Because we have multiplicity of membership. Our members belong to different organizations at the same time, so we have members who are in IGAD, but they are also in COMESA, EAC, so we don't have to do the same thing. We want to try to specialize and do something that provides an extra niche to us. And here we have identified cross-border issues that are kind of informal, the illegal kind of, because they're not, nobody has done a study, nobody has declared that as a macroeconomic zone, so they don't have a government stamp on. So when commissioners come from Ethiopia, Kenya, and border towns, they try to stop. But these are livelihood issues that have gone on for years, from 1920s. So that kind of trade, we need to capture it. So we're trying to look at a trade integration regime that recognizes what's already happening and then providing an official formal stamp on it. Because when you go to border towns in the Horn of Africa, you cross to other town, you sleep there, you stay there, you buy goods there, and your passport is not stamped. So if I tell somebody I was in Ethiopia and I'm coming from Kenya, I will be lying because I can't prove I was there. Because nobody cares about your passport or anything. It's just two towns open to each other. So you go and sleep on that side because there's a better hotel there. And then there are better leather shoes there. You buy shoes there, and you cross. Then you want to sell your animals. You come to Kenya, sell it, get Kenyan shillings, go to Ethiopia. In fact, in some of the Ethiopian Kenyan border towns, you don't use Ethiopian birr in Ethiopia, in those border towns. You need Kenyan shilling because there are more goods that the Ethiopians on that side require from the Kenyan side that they require to buy in Kenyan shillings, as opposed to Kenyan shillings to birr, for example. So really, all these are issues on trade that we want to do it differently. But we also want to do, we have infrastructure, we have roads development, we have energy interconnectivity, we have water supplies and sanitation sharing regimes. And the IGAD region has the highest asphalt road interconnectivity, I think, in all other regional organizations. This is something people don't talk about too much, because the countries have taken it on bilateral basis on their own. There are many roads that link, much roads and more longer asphalt roads, tarmac standards, that link Ethiopia to Kenya, Ethiopia to Sudan, Ethiopia to Djibouti, and within Ethiopia. And now we're doing Ethiopia to Somaliland, for example. We have an EU program called Berbera Corridor, for example. So road interconnectivity, telecommunication interconnectivity, energy interconnectivity is up and running. But also we have social issues, health issues, education issues, and another topic that has come up very, very high on our agenda now is migration. People are moving, as you know, that people from our region have mass graves now in the Mediterranean Sea, unfortunately, and this is becoming a very big agenda on our part. So all these are issues that we have been grappling with. Specifically, I'm sure you're going to ask questions, but before I stop, this was basically just an overview so that you can probably get your mind to want to prepare to to send us with a message or ask a question. But maybe I'll ask Mr. Alberto to add to, well, we had prepared a presentation, but I mean, it's still not necessary. There are some figures in that presentation, which probably maybe Alberto remembers overhead. He's a very smart man. So a few minutes and then we'll open the floor for discussion. Thank you very much, Mazara.
Señor Vega.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, sí, la verdad es que yo trabajo con IGAD en Djibouti con la cooperación alemana. Y eso tiene que ver con el hecho de que yo me he criado prácticamente en Alemania y llevo trabajando con la cooperación alemana, que es la GIZ, desde 1985. Y bueno, soy uno de esos migrantes que en los años 60 se fue con sus padres a trabajar a Alemania y finalmente me quedé allá y estudié en Alemania y llevo mucho tiempo trabajando en la cooperación. But I want to shift to English.
But is that Spanish? Okay.
Trabajé en Bolivia 15 años y me quedó un poquito el acento latinoamericano. I want to shift because I think that it is very difficult to add something to that what the Executive Secretary Mahboub Maalim explained to you. I think it was very complete. From my side, the only issue what I can maybe add is to say that in reality, when we are talking about because this was the thematic topic and issue for today, the current challenges in the IGAD region or in the Horn of Africa, maybe we can say that it is a multidimensional issues related to, we still have to work very strongly on poverty eradication and food security. We still have to work a lot on creating peace building, and these issues related to security. We have to work a lot on natural hazard, how to react to natural hazard, how to reduce vulnerability of the people, make them more resilient against that natural hazard. We have to work more on how to take also advantage of the fact that we have a lot of migration within the region, but also outside. And that brings us to a conceptual approach that the issues that has to be targeted are also issues that has to be targeted on different fronts and simultaneously. One issue is directly related to the humanitarian aid. It's not possible from one moment to another to stop humanitarian aid because people are in a situation of food insecurity and need to have that support from outside. The other issue is that simultaneously to humanitarian aid, it is necessary to start to work on development approaches. That means for long, medium and long-term development that change really the livelihood of the people and reduce the need of humanitarian aid. But this is a transitional phase that will take a few years, reducing step-by-step humanitarian aid and reinforcing development approaches for long-term structural changes in the society. The other issue is related to the fact that we need to have a clear understanding of the risk management that is also not only related to the natural hazard, but also economic shocks, for example. It is related to the conflicts. So to deal with risk and to have risk as a cross-cutting issue in mind whenever we are working on development issues is also a challenge that has to be faced. And finally, and this is what maybe is the main current understanding of the development process, is to make right resilience investments. That means we have to see a multi-sectoral approach, working simultaneously in health, in natural resource management, in conflict prevention, disaster risk reduction, etc. And this is the reason because since 2012, IGAD launched a regional strategy, what is called a drought resilience strategy for this 70% of the arid and semi-arid lands in the IGAD region, where we have 7 priority intervention areas that has to be tackled simultaneously, and are maybe we can say a certain response to the underlying causes of vulnerability. And this is one of the flagship programs in IGAD. It was possible to mobilize a lot of funds from different development partners, and maybe also first time in history we have a strategy approved by all the member states. Then we have also in each member state a country programming strategy, so that each member states are also harmonized with the neighboring country. And this is a flagship program that we think can give answers to all the challenges that we have in front. And I think only that as an additional point to that what was already explained by the Executive Secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, señor Vega, por una intervención que yo creo que nos ha aclarado y ha complementado muy bien la del secretario ejecutivo. I said thank you, Mr. Vega, for a very useful intervention that complements your previous words about what IGAD is doing.